This video is going to be slightly meta because of what I'm going to be talking about. It's going to be this product right here, the Surface Pro X. And it's not necessarily about just the product itself, it's about how excited it gets me for this growing portion of the computing market. You see, the Surface Pro X on its own is a little bit hard to recommend. I do find a lot of fun with it, I get a lot of work done, but in general, it just makes me think about the kinds of computers like this that we'll be getting in the coming year. Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? This is a look at the Microsoft Surface Pro X after this.
Internet security is incredibly important, and while software can certainly help, you can also get help from the sponsor of this video, Trend Micro, and their home network security device. It's a little node that connects to one of the Ethernet ports in your wireless router. That way you can monitor all of the wireless connections that come to your router and also the traffic that it feeds to all of your many devices. It provides powerful and flexible parental controls such as controlling social media and blocking inappropriate websites. It can protect from viruses and hackers and provide firewall protection for all of the connected devices in your home. All of that control is in a smartphone app that you can use to remotely control your network, which is something that I do here in my office. It's probably no surprise that I have so many devices connected in my office at any given time, even when I'm not in it. So it's nice for me to be able to see things like a timeline of all of the different connections that were made in my office so I can monitor what my internet is doing even if I'm not connected to it directly. If you want to learn more about how to make your wireless network even more secure, you can check out Trend Micro and their home network security device in the links in the description below. Thank you to Trend Micro for sponsoring this video.
Now, the form factor is something that I really enjoy. It works really well as a general tablet, and I have to admit, I've used it in that configuration more than I thought I would. But the vast majority of the time, I am using this like a small 13-inch Ultrabook, because once you connect it to one of the keyboards that snap right onto the bottom, it becomes a typing machine. And I mean it, this keyboard is actually super enjoyable to use, and I've used this for many different scripts just to have the Surface Pro X right here in the corner so that I have my script available with my notes and be able to do videos like this. Now I know that there is the ability to use a pen with the tablet features on here, but I don't have that pen, and to be honest, in pretty much any other device that supports a stylus or something of that nature, I don't really use them. So let's just say that the Surface Pro X does open me up to the world of convertible tablets, laptops, 2-in-1s, 3-in-1s, whatever the case may be. But once you get underneath the hood, the very things that make this laptop really exciting are also the things that make it less ideal. One of the reasons why is because it uses the Microsoft Qualcomm-based SQ1, which is a processor that we're going to see more often, at least this class of processor that creates what they call always connected PCs. Now, I did have a SIM card in here for a little bit of time, and it was nice to have that connectivity no matter where I was. However, with a laptop like this, I generally always have my smartphone in my pocket anyway, so I would just go back to tethering that smartphone to here like with most laptops. Now, you'll notice that I have it plugged in right now, and that's because the battery life on here is not as ideal despite the type of processor it's using. Now, just like with a lot of other reviewers, I have noticed that battery life on this is not quite where you would hope it to be. After a couple of updates came out, including the update to the Edge Chromium browser on here, it did get better. I did get a couple more hours on there, but for the most part, I make sure this thing is charged up either with the USB-C ports on the side or the included fast charger, and as long as it's topped up at all times, I can take it with me for a solid 6 to 9 hours worth of just writing time, because that's the thing I do the most on here. And finally, that type of processor also means that you're not really going to do a whole lot of gaming on here. Not that every single laptop should be judged on its gaming performance, but it's just something to keep in mind because the gaming or the lack thereof on here also open up the doors to the reasons why this processor is not ideal for most users. It uses the ARM architecture, and now this is probably something you've seen on a lot of publications or videos on this particular laptop, but in a nutshell, a lot of applications that you might want to use on a laptop like this, something so portable and yet so beautiful at the same time, simply won't work on here. Any of the Adobe applications, DaVinci Resolve, even an app like Notion, which is my note-taking and calendaring and task management system, they don't have ARM-capable or ARM-compatible applications that could be used on something like the Surface Pro X yet. Since I got this laptop in early December and have been using it for the last couple of months, I have seen a small trickle of new applications that have become supported on ARM. I'm happy that there are applications like Amazon Music HD and Dashlane that work well on here. And I'm not going to focus on this way too much, but I'm really happy that the Edge Chromium browser has finally come to the Surface Pro X. It is an ARM browser, but it's also based on the Chrome backend, which means that you can install different extensions, and also I can access the web version of Notion, thank God, so that I can actually take my notes properly the way that I want to. And as expected, there is a performance leap when you're using ARM-specific applications rather than trying to emulate ones made for other architectures. So you have to look in the Windows Store, maybe look through that catalog, and you might find some that you're really into. Or you can actually make apps of the web applications that you would otherwise run in the Edge Chromium browser. But like I said, I found use cases for this laptop, and I realized that those scenarios are very in line with what I noticed from my friends and colleagues in the tech space. You see, there are people like Jaime Rivera and Michael Fisher who use their laptops, MacBooks and whatnot, in order to do video editing and the main work that we do here on YouTube. But then they always seem to have something smaller on hand in order to take notes and to write and all that stuff, and I never quite understood the dichotomy of having a bigger machine and a smaller one at all times. Normally, I would just use my 15 or 14-inch laptop for literally everything, just bring that with me everywhere. Like right now, I have the MSI Prestige 15 connected to that monitor via a Thunderbolt 3 dock. That way I can connect it to there, get my work done on that monitor, unplug it, bring it home, connect it to my monitor at home, and then when I go to cafes, I bring that laptop and just use its screen when I'm on the go. But being on the go is the whole point of the Surface Pro X and other computers like it. Things like the always connectivity allow you to access your cloud for everything, and for the most part, because you're using something like the Edge Chromium browser, that is going to be your workflow. It's going to be a more cloud-based laptop, despite there being full Windows on here, but the Achilles heel is that there aren't that many apps that support the ARM architecture yet. I find myself equating my experience with the Surface Pro X with the times when I first started using tablets. I remember when tablets were starting to become a big thing, I could not understand why a huge screen was going to be so important to some people, and then I started using certain applications that were early adopters of those form factors. Applications like Netflix, which I did install on here using the Windows App Store, and then I started watching content on here, and as it turns out, this is a great media display. The speakers are also quite good, and then if you turn off the connectivity, you can get even more battery life out of it, so you could watch a number of episodes of any given show or movies. Because it is full Windows on here, there are things built into the OS that you can take advantage of. For example, you can use the built-in wireless display capability to make the Surface Pro X your secondary display to your already existing laptop workflow. That actually turned out to be a really fun thing to do, especially when I was traveling and I had both my laptop and this with me. But then, of course, when you're on the go and you have something like this, it is easier to leave your laptop, let's say in a hotel room, and just bring this writing machine with me over to a cafe or to a local spot and just be able to type my notes down in a very easy fashion. I guess my point is that even though this laptop has a lot of limitations, those limitations aren't going to be that way for very long. At least that's what I hope. But that's when the hard part comes in, because right now, what Microsoft is asking you to do is be a super early adopter. And I think for a lot of people out there, that's just not gonna fly. Even if you're the kind of person who would only use something like the Edge Chromium browser in order to do a lot of your work, that is a viable way of using this laptop, but it doesn't really justify the cost of the high-end model of the Surface Pro X. If you do decide to go to the Surface Pro X right now as your main computer, you are kind of getting ready for the future because more ARM applications are coming out all the time. So I guess it's easy to say that you shouldn't really go for the Surface Pro X right now unless you are that sure of just what you're going to use this computer for. Even the situations that I was talking about are a little bit niche in nature, so it's not like I'm telling you to get this just to watch Netflix or to just have a secondary display or to just even have something that you can write on, because it's just simply too expensive for that. But that's not to say you should write off the Surface Pro X altogether. A little bit later in the year, especially when ARM matures and more applications start to support it, it might be the perfect time to actually look into the Surface Pro X, and by that time, you'll probably have a bit of a discount and you'll be able to get a higher end version of it for a much more reasonable price. So unless you're the kind of person who really wants to be on the bleeding edge, you want to be the earliest adopter you possibly can, well, maybe you should not sleep on this laptop, but maybe you should wait for a little bit. It does make me excited for what comes next though, and Microsoft did a great job of showing us what an ARM Snapdragon 8 CX Plus processor enabled laptop could look like. All right, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this. It's been sitting on my queue for a little bit, and I know that some people out there are very interested in the form factors of a laptop like this. Unfortunately, I just can't recommend it right now, but I think that's going to change a little bit later this year, and I'm excited for when that actually happens. Other laptops with this type of processor, this type of form factor, this type of architecture, those are going to start coming out more and more. We're already starting to see some of them like the Galaxy Book S. So you can look out for even more of them to come out, and as they do, hopefully we'll see the ecosystem mature. But with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for watching. Drop some likes on this video and get into the comment sections down below. Let's have a discussion about ARM-based processors, about the Surface Pro X, about other Surface Pros, all of that stuff. Let me know what you think, and if you have been using this laptop as your main, I want to know what your use case has been like. Let me know about all of that in the comment sections down below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and consider hitting the bell over on the side so that you can keep up with everything that I'm doing here at JV. And with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. I'll thank you once again and remind you to enjoy your tea, everybody.